Remember that time when Saddam Hussein was on trial, hurricanes were named Katrina, and Microsoft made us ask, don't you mean the Xbox 260? Today I'm talking about that one from 2005, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Cards on the table, I hate this movie with a fiery passion that could be gobleted. I think this is one of the worst Harry Potter movies made, which is saying a lot considering the less than stellar outings in the franchise. I want to be clear. This is not an issue of an improper adaptation. In fact, my absolute favorite Harry Potter movie, Prisoner of Azkaban, is probably one of the least effective in terms of direct adaptation. No, I just think this is a really bad movie, and in so many different ways. So, the diehard Goblet of Fire fans, dislike, move on, whatever, but let's not draw this out. I want to establish right away that this is an exhaustive list of the parts of the movie that I enjoy, and it's short. To start, I think there is a lot of instances of really neat visual storytelling being employed throughout the movie, many of which are conveyed with very simple shots and actions. The shot of Ron's face as Harry's name is called from the Goblet of Fire is simple and to the point. We see the distrust, the jealousy in Rupert Grint's face with minimal gestures, and then the slow push in really sells the feeling of something nefarious about to happen. With a simple action and basic camera movement, the audience gets what's coming for these two characters and the relationship going forward. Or take this quick interaction between Harry and Moody as Harry's about to enter the maze. At this point in the story, Harry believes that Mad Eye's kind of his bro, that he's okay with giving him these little hints about how to do the tasks. It's cute, and with one quick take, it lets us see who these characters are and what they're thinking. And then it will further serve as subtle foreshadowing of the twist at the end of the movie. There's also this great shot of Alan Rickman holding Barty hostage at the end of the movie, where he really just sells this sort of disgust and fear at what's just been done to resurrect Voldemort. Your body like a hairy troll. I love that they've kept the Weird Sisters performance in at the Yule Ball as well. It's a really simple thing that could have been overlooked, but helps the world feel more real, more lived in. Similar to how Quran allowed the kids to style their school uniforms in Prisoner of Azkaban, it gives an idea of what their lives are like outside of schoolwork and fighting evil wizards. They're teenagers, they're not going to be listening to chamber music on their spare time. Sorry, Alfonso. The fourth book introduces quite a few new characters, and I think most of the new actors do a good job with what they're given. The only problem is that many of them aren't given much at all. I really like Robert Pattinson as Cedric. In theory, that is, because he's in like 3 scenes. I really want to like Robert Pattinson as Cedric, but the audience is given very little time with him.
Exactly.
A really neat storyline that's sort of left by the wayside in the adaptation is that budding camaraderie between Harry and Cedric as they make their way through the tasks. Sure, it's nodded to in the movie here and there, but it feels very surface level. The audience hasn't seen much to say the relationship is any more than that of an acquaintance. It's hard to see it as huge an emotional moment for Harry as it is in the book. In the movie, Cedric's death just, kind of like sad, I guess. Ralph Fiennes jumps into the fray as Voldemort, and it's a very welcome addition to the movie. He really does a lot with his minimal screen time. I like how they flip between portraying Voldemort as calm and quiet to frenetic and deranged at the drop of a hat. We get to see that inside he really is spiteful, angry, and chaotic, but that he has worked himself into a position of such fear and power that he can pretend to be outwardly measured and meticulous.
Hold out your arm, Master. Thank you, Master. The other arm, Wormtail.
When reading the books, I always had this trouble picturing how Voldemort's high and cold voice could be menacing or how it would even really sound, but Fiennes really pulls it off. Also, I like that he's barefoot because, fuck it, he cray. I also like Miranda Richardson as Rita Skeeter generally, and I think she pulls off the most authentically funny moments in the movie.
Lovely.
But I do sort of question her inclusion as her subplot just sort of fizzles away. It feels like she's included just to jam some more comedic elements into the first 40 minutes of runtime, which honestly seems like something they were definitely going for. There are so many strange little comedy detours sprinkled into the opening act of this movie. Oh boy, okay. There's a lot of bad in this movie. You might have noticed that even the good tended to come with some buts. So many threads in this story are just left behind, or not fully developed when introduced. This movie feels so overstuffed with content, and I think the number one goal for an adaptation is figuring out what needs to remain in play. It's like the screenwriter felt he couldn't leave any of these book plots behind, but also felt no obligation to finish them or flesh them out. Why do we have this scene of Karkaroff sneaking into the Great Hall? Why does Moody explain to Harry what the faux glass does? Why are the main mystery threads only developed 2 scenes before the third task and the end of the movie?
But boomslang skin, lacewing flies. You and your little friends are brewing polyjuice potion, and believe me, I'm going to find out why.
Why are Crumb's eyes milky white while under the Imperious curse in the maze? Why did dead people appear to Harry in the graveyard? Why is the maze alive all of a sudden? When Moody is revealing his evil plan, they've already shown the audience that he's transforming into somebody else. One of the best parts of this whole plot paying off is the moment that you think that the actual Moody has been the evil mastermind the whole time. They also cut out the few lines of dialogue of Dumbledore mobilizing his side for the fight, which is such a quick few lines to include, and I think it's so important to show his preparedness. He's ultimately a calculating and Machiavellian character, but in this movie, all we know is that Voldemort masterminded this comeback under his nose, and he just kind of like shrugged.
Priori incantatum.
Also, let's hope that the audience liked the effect of Harry and Voldemort's duel, because it will be copied and pasted for the next 4 movies. All of these items just get dropped or barely touched on to make room for dance lessons. They include all these strange little side conversations or interactions that are just there and don't go anywhere. Considering they plan to spend 6 minutes of runtime on a dragon chasing Harry around, I think this whole movie could have been far better optimized.
Give me the wretched name!
Barty Crouch!
Junior.
There's a ton of strange choices of delivery for the dialogue.
Up, Ronald.
Bloody hell.
Honestly, get dressed.
I can't tell if these are script issues or direction issues at the heart of it, but it means that we get the scenes that, haunt the fandom's nightmares.
Everything is a conspiracy theory!
I protest!
Harry!
I protest!
Harry, you put your name in that goblet of fire.
No, sir.
You asked one of the oldest students to do it for you?
No, sir.
You're absolutely...
We also have the traditionally stilted dialogue between most of the kids in the movie.
I just mean he's not particularly loquacious. Mostly he watches me study. It's a bit annoying, actually.
Harry Potter movies seem to have an issue with making anyone that isn't in the conversation for greatest working British actor sound like they don't know how to have human conversations.
Oh, well spotted.
Can we run away?
I don't necessarily blame this movie for that. Some of the movie directors over the series are able to pull fairly decent performances out of the trio, others struggle. I think Goblet falls somewhere in the middle, but as its own movie, divorced from the others, yeah, it's definitely bothersome. I don't know if it's the lack of ability of some of the cast, weak direction, or clumsy script, but it leads to some really artless lines.
Off the table! I love magic.
When my critiques for your movie can be summed up in a Futurama clip, you can't be trying very hard.
You can't just have your characters announce how they feel! That makes me feel angry!
Remember earlier when I said there's some good uses of visual storytelling in this movie? Yeah, well, there's also tons of examples of the exact opposite. One of the tackiest choices is giving Barty Crouch Jr. this little tick of flicking his tongue in his mouth. There are much more subtle ways to hint at the big reveal without going so over the top. When Moody is performing the Cruciatus Curse, he gets sort of caught up in it. He lingers and is clearly enjoying the torture until Hermione finally breaks him out of it. When Harry's name comes out of the Goblet of Fire, he has this slight look of satisfaction. When everyone else is worried or confused, he's stoic, which works both as the unflappable Auror and with the true feelings of Barty Crouch. These are some wonderful, subtle ways to leave the breadcrumb trail for the eventual reveal. The tongue flicks are just hacky, and they don't even look like a real tick a person might have. If that's not enough, we get David Tennant really driving the point home. Don't get me wrong, I love a good scene of Tennant chewing the scenery, but he doesn't even have anything to work with here. Also, it's such a small gripe, but I just can't get over the choice to include the Hermione reveal in this script. Hermione's played by Emma Watson, you guys. She's already pretty. You don't need to pretend like this is some big glow up. It doesn't even affect the Crumb, Ron, Hermione triangle plot at all, so it just feels like weird filler included just because it's in the book. Let's talk tone. Okay. I love what Alfonso Cuarón did with Prisoner of Azkaban. He brought the colors and lighting to a far darker and dingier place to fit the tone of the story he wanted to tell. Gone were the Technicolor dreamscapes of the first two movies, and subbed in were muddier colors, lived-in and grimy sets, darkly lit scenes to fit that tone. This is the year of Dementors, an escaped prisoner, murder, and betrayal. Goblet of Fire keeps Cuarón's moody color palette to do this.
This castle will not only be your home this year, but home to some very special guests as well. You see, Hogwarts...
Despite copying Cuarón's visuals, this feels like the most childish Harry Potter in a lot of places. And the weird thing is, that's really not the vibe of the source material. The colors at the beginning of the movie only really look right at night, with the Portkey and Hogwarts Express scenes so washed out that it looks like it was edited for my MySpace page in 2006. There's a desaturation to colors that don't seem to be based off of lighting of the scene or the time of the day. They're just dingy, and to top it off, it seems like the grading changes perceptibly from scene to scene. Certain ones look far more normal than others. The effects in this movie either look good or downright horrible. Yes, the dragon is very much in keeping with the high-end CGI of the time, but then you get the whole underwater sequence looking like it was ripped out of that Final Fantasy movie. Harry's fall into the Pensive looks like it's from one of those straight-to-VHS Disney movies from the 90s. The two Portkey scenes have two different effects for no reason. The Death Eaters turn into sentient clouds for travel. Moody's eye is Inspector Gadget tech.
Come on, Sid, leave him.
Right.
Some of these look bad, some of these look fine from a technical standpoint, but feel out of place, making the visuals feel like an unholy mess. They generally serve to make the magic of the world kind of confusing and inconsistent. All right, lightning round. Oh boy, okay. Someone really wanted this to be the funny Harry Potter movie.
Saturday night, and make sure you're alone. Serious. P.S. The bird bites.
Ha! Get it? He wrote it in the letter, and then it bit him.
Desk, Mr. Finnegan!
Oh, no way.
Moody just yeets a piece of chalk at the kids.
I'm here across classrooms!
Even things that are directly adapted from the book have been given this like odd silent movie style overacting. Look, here's Fred and George legitimately attempting to fight each other. This movie has a lot of new characters to introduce, and it goes about that weirdly. Cedric likes climbing trees.
With me, at the Ministry.
We have to watch this scene of Crumb being welcomed like a K-pop star. Shit, Malfoy likes climbing trees too. Maybe it's an elective at Hogwarts. I really hope this movie makes a teenager dance with an old woman at some point.
My waist. And extend your...
Also, who made the call to have the schools gender exclusive? I mean, why? Were people confused by this in the book? Is your magic ceiling on the fritz? Call Mad Eye Moody and he'll shoot it back to normal. If the name Death Eaters didn't tip you off, this copy and pasted clan imagery should really show us these are the villains.
Have you looked at them?
What? No. A bit.
They've got skulls on them. Have you noticed that our caps have actually got little pictures of skulls on them?
Hey, and if you like that kind of subtlety, that is to say the non-existent kind, see if you can spot the clever visual metaphor for sad Neville. When you have a great actor like Gary Oldman on payroll, make sure you only use him for voiceovers and weird facial mocap.
You didn't hear a name.
And what was that?
Does this hurt him? Why does he talk like that? Now, imagine you're a director and you need to imply certain characters are more familiar with a physical task. It's old hat to some of these characters, but not to others. Well, obviously, these less qualified characters should just fall on their faces, and the more qualified...
I bet that cleared your sinuses, eh?
Perfect. All of this pales in comparison to the scene with Moaning Myrtle. It's so deeply uncomfortable to watch this, and it goes on for like 2 minutes.
Ages to riddle it out. Almost all the bubbles were gone.
This is like a 40-year-old lady. I feel like I'm being punished. Maybe the real Triwizard Cup is the cringing we did along the way.
What?
What's the matter with him? I don't know, I can't see him.
Yeah, no shit. This has to be the single worst spectator event. The only event that's designed to be seen by the audience, 1/4 of the participants just left the arena. So, Harry straight up murders this dragon, right?